Want to get a full behind the scenes look about how a brand is built? Well, in this series, I'm taking you behind the scenes as I create a brand completely from scratch. I'm going to take you along the journey as I show you exactly what I do, right from the idea to the brand strategy, the designing and the marketing. So come and create a brand with me. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how I start working on the brand's visual identity. Now, as I thought about it, I realized there's a lot of different parts when it comes to it, and identity you can start to really expand. If you want to get really serious about branding every single touch point, there's a lot of different parts to it. Now, even things like thinking about making Instagram gift stickers, like there's so many things that you can be doing. So in this particular video, I'm going to look at those base elements, because a lot of those other little bits all stem from those base elements. But those base elements are the ones that direct everything else. So I want to first of all show you how to design them. So that includes things like the logo, sub-logo, choosing fonts and colors, and a few other little graphic elements that will then inform all the other brand identity elements. So I'm going to show you how I work on them. So come and join me, let's get designing. So based on the strategy that I went through in the last video, I've started to pull together a mood board. So the mood board includes the feelings that I want to evoke, as well as the overall vibe of the brand and that kind of look and feel that I want to capture. I've collected here images that create the overall feeling of the brand, as well as things that capture the kind of photography style and the kind of graphic style that I want. It's really important when it comes to creating a mood board that you make sure you're capturing all different elements of the brand, so that you're showing how it all comes together and works together really nicely, and it really captures that overall vibe and feel. It's also important to make sure that all the images also use the brand colors or colors within that range, so you're also showing how the colors all work together and that overall feel with the colors as well. I then like to take time to curate the mood board, put it together really nicely so it really captures that overall feeling and it becomes a reference point. So as I'm designing, I can keep referring to it. So first of all here, I've got my mood board. So I've got the reference here of the mood and the feel that I want to create with the branding. I think it's really important to keep that really close by when you're working on your branding, because it gives you reference and it makes sure that you're, keeping in line with that feeling that you want to create. And so you're not going to end up going on a tangent and creating something completely different, but you can keep looking at that and keep making sure that what you create really does capture that mood and feeling. All right, so first of all, the logo. So this was the logo I originally designed back when I first came up with this business name and had a completely different brand idea. So I sort of feel like I'm cheating you a bit because I'm not taking you through how I'm actually creating this, because I already created that and I feel like it really does suit this new brand. So I'm sort of sticking with it. I am making a few little tweaks though, so I will show you that. But I think the fact that we're not focusing completely on this logo and creating a logo does really emphasize the point that the logo isn't everything when it comes to the brand. There's so many other things that we're going to look at and explore when it comes to branding, and that logo just isn't that most important thing. So I think the fact that I'm sort of glossing over the logo a bit sort of does actually emphasize just how it's only this small piece of the great big branding puzzle. So if you notice here already, when you look at the logo style, it does really tie in very well with this mood board. So you see these curve shapes like in the lamp, those same sort of curves are in the type here. So the type, I was trying to create, that feeling of gentleness, creativity, and femininity. So it's got all these beautiful curves and flow and shape. But then also it ties in with the idea that I want, it to be about feeling confident and joyful. And the fact that the type is quite thick and bold gives it that real confident, joyful feel to it. So if it was very thin type, it would feel very delicate and elegant, whereas we want a more fun, bold, playful kind of feel. And I think this type really does communicate that message. So the things that I want to change though, I've got at the bottom, I put by Tabitha Emma. And I don't want to add that anymore for the new one. Originally it was because it was more of a sub-brand of my main brand, so I don't want to include that anymore. And also I don't feel that font that I used really does suit what I'm doing either. It's really thin, and to be honest, I don't feel like it really complements the logo that well, so I really don't want to use that. So I'm just leaving it there as reference to show you what I originally had and the tweaks and changes we're going to make. So this was the updated version. So basically I've just removed that by Tabitha Emma part, and then I've tweaked the colour. So the original colour was quite a very strong pink, and I've started to dull it down and make it slightly less saturated. Now the reason I did this, I was playing around with the colours for this brand, and I just felt that this bright pink was a bit too bright and bold. I wanted something a little bit more subdued and gentle, and I wanted to make it feel a little bit more refined and sort of give it that more high fashion feel. So the logo is very sort of playful and fun, and can very easily start to feel like it's positioned more as a sort of cheaper brand, and we wanted to elevate it a bit. And so just by lowering the saturation of the pink, I feel like it elevates it a bit more and makes it feel a slightly more refined and beautiful fashion brand. And then when we go back to this mood board too, you'll see that it's more those low saturation tones I picked out here. So you're not really seeing these really bright colors like I got in that original one. I know it's only quite a small subtle change, but subtle changes can make a big difference when it comes to branding. Sometimes you need to tweak things and just make these little subtle adjustments, and they can really change what it communicates. So you'll notice I'm using all these really low saturation colors, and the pinks that you see here are all these real low saturation pinks. So that's what I wanted to bring into the color. So then I was just playing with the colors here. I wanted to use a yellow in it because we wanted to communicate joy and confidence, and yellow is really that joyful, confident color, but I didn't want anything too bright. I still wanted to make it feel elegant, more of that low saturation tones, and then it gives it that more gentle feel. We don't want it to feel too bright, bold, and crazy and full of energy, because if we had a real bright yellow, that might start to feel a bit more childlike and real high energy, and we're trying to make it feel a bit more like this really elegant, beautiful fashion brand, but at the same time it's a bit playful and fun. So what I'm trying to do is get that balance where it feels playful, it feels full of confidence, but it's also an elegant, beautiful fashion brand as well. So that's why I've gone for these low saturation tones. So I've been playing here with different levels, because often when you pick your colors, you want a few lighter and darker versions of the colors you have. I was also trying to just, adjust, get it just right, get those tones right. I originally, with this cream color, I went for a more yellowy cream color, and as I tested it out, when I put it on social media, I noticed it looked a bit too yellow, and I wanted a more creamy color, so then I moved on to this color. And I think that actually suits these other colors a lot better. So sometimes you really need to tweak and play around with colors and make sure they all complement each other and they feel like they've got that same tone. So that, if you notice, compared to the other colors, it feels like it's got a bit too much yellow in it. And these all seem to be more the same level of saturation there. So these four are sort of the main primary colours, and then I've just played with lighter tones and some darker tones. Keep in mind too, you need to have a colour that's going to be able to be used for text. So I played with having a grey, but I also considered maybe a really dark greyish brown, because I think brown really suits nicely with these other colours and it softens it. I was worried the grey might feel a bit too harsh compared to the other colours. So that's something I'm going to have to test out. So you see here in my mood board, how it's got the brown text here. So it's sort of a similar colour I've created there. And you can see how it feels a little bit softer. If you go for a grey or a black, it's going to feel really stark, and that's not really the feeling we're trying to go for. So then obviously we've got the pink, which is the main colour, which is really, for me, it's about being very feminine, and pink can also be a real colour of confidence too. And then blue, that's a bit more calming, so it's going back to that sort of gentle feeling of there's a bit of calmness and sophistication there. And then we're using some cream tones to balance things out, which is going to be great for things like backgrounds in our graphics. It's always great to have some neutral tones as well as your bright colours. You've really got to think about the usage. So here we've sort of got a nice range, so we can use it for different things. Yellow is going to be used, I think, in moderation, just for when we want to highlight things and we just want a bit of pop of colour. The pink, sort of that main colour, we're going to be using quite a lot, but then you'll actually end up using these creamy tones probably the most, because it's going to be used mostly as background colours. And then these dark colours here, the dark brownie colour, that's for text. So then we go to fonts. So I was playing with some different kinds of fonts here. So what I wanted was to have a serif and a sans serif font. So we've got that contrast. It's really important when you're choosing fonts to make sure that there's some contrast there. And often the best way to get contrast is by having a serif and a sans serif. But then you've got to find a way to also make those fonts complement each other. So the way I'm making them complement and also tying them back into the logo so that all ties in nicely is the roundedness. So you'll notice that in the logo we've got really rounded shapes here. So I was trying to look for fonts that feel very rounded too. So when it comes to sans serif, I looked at this one, but I felt it was really nice and round, but it's a bit too thin. I really did like that one, but it felt it was probably a little bit too thin. So as you can see, it looks quite nice with the logo, but I'm just not too sure about the thinness. So I might have to test it out, see how it works, but I'm worried it is a bit too thin. Then this one here, it's a bit too tall. We still want that real roundedness, and this one is a little bit more condensed, so I'm not too sure that's going to work. This one here, it's getting a little bit more rounded, but not quite there. It's not as rounded. Then I came across this one, which I thought was pretty cool because it has a very similar feel to the logo. It's got a little bit of more boldness to it. It's also quite round. It feels quite similar to that logo font, so I think that one could be a winner. So it's sort of a debate between this one and that one at the moment. I like the fact that this one's a lot bolder, so it really ties in with the rest of the feel here because we're trying to communicate that confidence and boldness and standing out. And it's got that real feminine feel to it because of the curves. You know, we're going from thin to thick lines here, so it feels very curvy and feminine. It ties back into all these curves we've got here in the mood board. So I feel like that font could really suit this brand and really communicate what we want it to communicate. And then we come over here to the sans serifs. Again, I was looking for fonts that have a really rounded feel, so we want that O to be like a perfect circle almost. So I looked at a few different ones here. We've got Futura, Avenir, and Proxima Nova. So Proxima Nova is actually the font that I used for my Tabitha Emma brand. I just threw it in here because it is really nice sans serif font and I really love it. But you might notice that it's not quite as rounded. Like, it is very rounded font, but it's just slightly a bit taller. Whereas these two here are super rounded. And then I was just looking at the quality of the font. So I felt Avenir doesn't feel quite as quality to me. Maybe I'm being really, really picky, but I feel like Futura is a bit more of a quality font. It just feels a little bit more perfect in its design. It's not as noticeable actually zoomed in. I feel like when you zoom out and make it small, you'll notice here with the Avenir, it just doesn't look like it's rendering as nicely, whereas Futura just looks more beautiful. It's hard to sort of explain in a way. I think there's a slight thin and thickness here that's not very easy to notice, but it just makes it look slightly more pixelated and a bit off to me. Futura just looks really perfect, basically. So I'm thinking it might be the way to go. Then when it comes to the logo submark, so this was something I didn't originally create. I didn't have any kind of submark for the logo. So this was something new I started working on. So I just pulled the G and the C and they actually fit together really beautifully. I then considered if I should add anything else to it. So I did try pulling this little bit here from the G and sort of tweaking it a bit so it gives it that sort of almost like a headband type shape, so it could sit on top a bit like a headband. But playing around with it, I started to think it maybe felt a bit too much, like we're trying a bit too hard to make too much detail there. Sometimes simpler is just better, but it's always great to play with these ideas. So I did play around with some different curve ideas because I quite like the idea of this curve thing, a bit like a headband, some sort of curved shape. I don't know if I might just keep playing with that, and who knows, we might come up with something that we can use in the brand identity in some way like that, because we have got a lot of beautiful curves. And that's something we really looked at in this mood board too, is that curveness, because sort of, you know, that shape of the headbands, the curves going around, scrunchies too, there's this real curviness, and it's very feminine and has that sort of confidence feeling too of, you know, really embracing curves in your body. So it's something I might play around with a bit more, but I haven't really found anything that it feels quite right just yet, but it is something that I could keep working on and something that could be added to the brand identity. So then we've got patterns. So I was working on a postcard design and I really wanted this gingham background, so I created one that I felt would tie in with the brand. So I wanted it to feel sort of hand created, so I hand drew the lines, so they're not, you know, absolutely perfect lines. Sort of gives that really creative, artistic feel to it, and it sort of just feels really fun, and, you know, takes it back to that fabric feel. This could be something that I work on in different color variations too. So this could be a pattern that we use in all the different brand colors. So I'm just playing around that with at the moment. I'll share a bit more with you about that when we work on the packaging side of things. I was just mocking up the concept of it and making sure too these fonts, I was testing out the fonts here to see how well they work and making sure that they would look good in context, because that's really important when it comes to your branding, is checking, is it going to work in context? Because it's all very well to pick out all these colors and fonts and think that looks really great, but it's not to actually put it together in something that's going to be used that you can notice maybe that isn't working, you know, and you can start to tweak it and get it just right. And I tested this out and I do feel it's working quite well. I might still play around with this serif font, try and make sure I'm picking the right one with that. I do think it looks pretty good there. I'm really happy with the Futura. I'm definitely going with that. I don't know whether or not we'll play around and have a look around for other options with the serif font. We'll just see how we go. And then I was also playing with a bit of context here of social media graphics. This was one I already created before, working on too much of the fonts and all that sort of thing. Just trying to play with the idea and also play with the colours, because I wanted to see how maybe we could incorporate the yellow. So sort of if we added a bit of yellow there for just a small amount, it just really complements that pink beautifully. And so yeah, it was just sort of playing with the whole concept here and seeing how well these fonts and colours work, and if they're going to work well in context and when they're actually going to be used. And then I started working on the idea for a tag, just something very simple. So I'll get a bit more into packaging next time, because that's a whole other area. But I just wanted to test out these elements, see how they work, and I feel like it's really coming together well, and it's really communicating the message I want. So if you notice here in the mood board too, we have some sort of curvy patterns, so I might work on some other patterns too. So we've got this gingham pattern, and then we might have some sort of curvy pattern, which I think maybe that's where this could come in. That whole headband curve idea is maybe some sort of pattern that can be used. Alright, so now we're working on that final brand board. So there's a few things that I've tweaked and changed and added since I was working on that initial ideas and putting it all together. So first of all, you saw I was umming and ahhing about that serif font, and something about it just didn't feel quite right. So I went on Adobe Fonts and started looking through, trying to find a serif font that felt better, and I came across this particular font. And even though it's not as rounded, which was that original feel we were trying to go for, it actually matches the other fonts really nicely. It goes with the Futura really well. It just, something about it looks like it's meant to go with it a lot more. And I decided not to go for something quite so bubbly, because we want to make sure that it works in lots of different scenarios, and this font does come in bold variations, so that if we want to have it looking a bit bolder, we can do that. And it also has thinner versions, so if we don't want such a bubbly look for certain things, then we've still got that option as well. So it's really important when you're choosing fonts that you've got fonts with lots of variations, so, you know, italics, bold, different kinds of weights, and then you've got more options then. So even though you might only be using 2 fonts, you've got lots of variations within that particular font, and that gives you the ability to create more interest with your typography. Then here we've finalized the colors, so we've started to really pull them together and making sure that they're all feeling really great together. And then I'm separating into the primary colors and the secondary colors. So the primary colors are the main brand colors, the ones that are going to be used the most, so the ones that you'll see the most. And those secondary colors, they're ones that just complement them really well for times when you just need another color. So often they're just lighter or darker variations of those main primary colors. So we're giving ourselves options. So when we're creating different graphics and different things for the brand, there's those extra colors if we need them for things like shadows or backgrounds and little elements like that where you just need a bit of variation in color. And then we've got these illustrations and graphic elements. So before I showed you that gingham, so we're then moving into various color variations of that, and then also adding another pattern. So as I showed you in the mood board, and also I was playing around with that sub logo, was trying to create this curve shape and creating a pattern that's got that feel to it too. Something that sort of, in a way, to me represents that curvy femininity, but also is sort of like a headband where it's curved. I also decided to add these little daisy graphic elements too. I think it's really cute to have a few extra little illustrations and things that we can add. And I just felt the daisy really suited the rest of the branding. It's something that goes very well with that gingham look, and they're really cute flowers. And to me, they just feel very happy. And there's something about the flower to me that just it just says joy and happiness without being too overly bright. The other flowers I could probably also say that would probably be sunflowers. To me, that's a bit too summery. We want something that feels more, it could be any season, but it's got that real happy, fun, playful vibe to it. And then these sort of elements too are really fun when it comes to social media. So they're something that we could turn into an animated GIF for little stickers on Instagram, things like that. So it just adds all these fun little branded elements. And then I've got an illustrated scrunchie and also illustrated headbands. I thought it'd be fun to illustrate the actual product too as something that we can add in social media graphics, things like that, or even creating a pattern. So if I decide with packaging that I want to use patterns in any way, these are all different elements that could be used towards creating some sort of pattern that could be used in packaging, or just elements that can be added to the packaging in some way. So that's our final brand board, and in the next video we're going to expand upon that further to create a full brand guide and also creating more branded elements. So I really hope you enjoyed following this process and watching how I designed the brand identity for this brand. And if you want to continue watching this journey, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that bell notification so you get a notification whenever a new video comes out. The next video we're going to be going and expanding on that identity, creating more elements, and then creating a brand identity guide. So making sure we have guidelines so that when anything is created for the brand, any kind of graphics, we have guidelines to follow. I also created an Instagram for this new brand, so you'll see the link down below here. It's at The Gentle Creative, and so if you want to follow this brand as it comes to life, you can check out the Instagram there as well. So I look forward to seeing you in the next episode as we dive even deeper into the brand identity. See you then.